Greetings, this is Willie Muhammad with National Network View. On tonight's show, our guest commentators, Dr. Gary Clark and attorney Saddiyah Karriem, will discuss the recent incident involving a white woman dubbed the Victoria's Secret's Karen, after an altercation with a black woman apparently backfired. Later in the show, Dr. Gary Clark and attorney Saddiyah Karriem will discuss the recent protests for democracy in Cuba and whether America is fueling the protests. Lastly, our guest will discuss the recent accomplishment of 14-year-old Zaila Avante-Garde, the 2021 Scripps National Spelling Bee champion. But before we get into those top news stories, let's do a recap of the current events that were recently covered here on National Network View. On I Have a Testimony show, my guests were Sister Medina Muhammad and Noor Muhammad, who shared more of their family's experience during the early years of the Nation of Islam. Did you all like growing up, like you ever asked your mother any like questions specifically about Master Farah Muhammad or the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Yeah. I asked my mother one time, where did he stay? And she told me he was way out. She said he would come pick me up and we'd go way out, Woodward, way out somewhere. And I found out from my father, he stayed in Ferndale, and they went there for a picnic one time.
Yeah, that's right.
They went there for a gathering and they played baseball and stuff. Yeah, they often talk about their time.
Ferndale was one of the locations there was a Caucasian brother. His name was Willie. Willie Muhammad. He was known as the walking encyclopedia. He stayed in Ferndale because he was one of the many who had what they considered a fine home.
During last week on NNV News anchor Rosalind Park sat down with attorney Zalia Karriem and Rachel D. Graham to discuss the racist rant and arrest of a white man accused of harassing a black woman and her black neighbors in Mount Laurel, New Jersey.
We would like to begin this segment by simply asking each of you to share your thoughts about this incident.
So the reality is it wasn't until this video went viral until the people or the community of the neighbors got some type of justice. I was looking in the history of this particular man, and since 2017, he's literally been harassing the neighborhood. He started off with the HOA, the board, and on it was 3 black members. One of the members had to sell her home because of the amount of harassment that this particular man forced upon her. But the fault was the police department, because there were many complaints that were filed with the police department to investigate this man before it escalated the way that it did, and they did nothing. There was a sister who there were additional charges, I believe, yesterday or today that were filed against him. Harassment, stalking. They found weapons in his home where he was shooting BB guns at the neighbors' vehicles. They found drugs in his home. I mean, just overall, he was a bad neighbor, but he was a terrorist in that particular neighborhood.
Attorney Saddiyah Karriem and Rachel D. Graham talked about the recent tweet of Congresswoman Cori Bush stating Black people still aren't free.
Regarding this tweet, was the Congresswoman being racist when she made this statement?
Absolutely not. She was not being racist. What she was actually doing was telling the truth. Anytime you tell the truth about the white supremacist establishment, they want to turn it around because they feel some kind of way, or they don't want the distraction, and they call it racism. Because if we look at the reality of July 4th was never about Black people being free. The truth and the reality was the independence of America was embraced because of keeping slaves enslaved. They were freeing themselves from the British, from Britain, because Britain didn't want to have slavery anymore. White America, the white colonies, they wanted to fight to be able to continue to keep their slaves. So when we look at the Constitution, we were never included in that Constitution. Actually, we were considered nothing but property and 3/5 of an individual based on voting rights.
Rachel D. Graham and attorney Zalia Karriem also shared their thoughts on Nicole Hannah-Jones declining the UNC's tenure offer for a position at Howard University.
Do you think she made the right decision to refuse the offer and decide to accept the position at Howard University?
Absolutely. I concur with everything that Sister Saddiyah said. I also want to go deeper, though, because if you look at the reasoning that the board chair Hussman gave, it was because he did not believe that her academia stood up to the muster test, if you will, that there was question around the research validity of 1619. Now, mind you, this woman has a Pulitzer. She has received a MacArthur Genius Grant, all the things, and actually was an alum of UNC's journalism department. And so let's go deeper and talk about that. If you look at the background of the man who was questioning her academic bona fides, if you will, he became a newspaper man by virtue of his birthright.
NNV News anchor Naya Sai spoke with weekly contributor Charles Muhammad about how to eat to live, calculating our BMI, which is the body mass index, controlling our calorie intake to avoid weight gain and obesity.
And why are Americans struggling with obesity then?
Well, because we fail to do proper research. You know, libraries are free. You know, there are books abundance. Now you have the internet. We have access to information where we can just watch videos if we don't feel like reading, audio books. But we got to learn what is a calorie. See, a calorie, we told, are in foods, but a calorie is a measurement of heat. You know, calor from the Latin meaning hot, and calorie. It's a measurement of heat. Now, there are calories in ice cream, but that doesn't mean ice cream is flaming hot. It only means that that's the amount of energy that you have to bring in terms of heat in the internal body to break apart the molecules that is in ice cream that makes up its constitution. But once you learn that, you learn how many calories you bring in. You got to learn the output to burn up those calories.
Wow. NNV anchor Rosalind Park sat down with weekly contributor Brian E. Muhammad to discuss the overnight assassination of Haitian President Moïse and the Haitian uprising that began after the government failed to hold new elections.
We learned today that the Haitian president, Jovenel Moïse, was assassinated overnight. Has anyone or any group claimed responsibility for his assassination?
No, no one has claimed responsibility. In fact, the reports that has been going on all day about it, particularly from the interim Prime Minister Claude Joseph, who said that they don't know who did it. And there was some footage apparently that was captured where they heard English-speaking people and Spanish-speaking people, which implies that these were, outside mercenaries or outside foreign interests that did this act in the wee hours of the morning.
Sister Sharif Muhammad, founder and director of Asiatic Minds, an online school, shared how the school is helping our students to develop their skills, talents, and abilities, and is bringing together educators from across the nation to offer a full educational curriculum.
What inspired you to launch Asiatic Minds online education at this specific time?
Well, Asiatic Minds, it came about out of necessity. For many years, I'm a homeschooling mom, and I've homeschooled my 5 children for over 20 years. And throughout that time, I always wished that they were able to attend the MUI or have something that they could attend that would reflect our household. And so within that time period, I was introduced to an online school that was based out of Atlanta that my daughter, my oldest daughter, was able to attend. But it never occurred to me at that particular time to develop a school based on my beliefs and principles.
Jabbar, and Brother Lawrence Muhammad set the record straight about the criticism of actor Michael B. Jordan for referencing a Caribbean Emancipation Festival in the initial naming of his forthcoming rum product. Which one of you all will be able to give us a brief explanation of what cultural appropriation is?
Sure, I'll go for it.
Yes.
And, so basically, cultural appropriation is basically taking the culture of another people, their mores, the things that they do within their culture, and using it for self. And some definitions say without the approval of that particular culture. Some definitions also say those who are in power taken from those who are not in power, those who are quote unquote beneath them. And so taking their particular culture, using it for their own culture as their own culture, basically stealing from someone else. So it's different variations of that definition. Basically, it's the same. Taking from one culture and bring it to another and claiming it for themselves.
Guest commentators Dr. Asad El Malik and attorney Gavin Richard commented on the temporary suspension of the U.S. track and field star Sha'Carri Richardson after she tested positive for THC, the active chemical in marijuana. Is this the case? Is it an attempt to stop Black dominance in the Olympics, or is this just an example of a bad decision which has caused somebody to miss out on an opportunity that they've worked hard for?
There's a scene from the movie Friday where Ice Cube's character Craig is upset with Smokey because they've just gotten into it with Big Worm, and he said, and Smokey tells Craig, "I didn't put that joint in your mouth and make you smoke." Right. So is this a way of keeping Black dominance out of the Olympics? I wouldn't go that far at all to say that. What I think it is a 21-year-old young adult made a mistake who was attempting to cope with the death of her biological mother, and she should have had better people around her who would have given her the type of support, community support that she needed in order to cope with such a tragedy in her life. So we're going to pause for some announcements from our sponsors, but when we return, we're going to hear from our commentators, Dr. Gary Clark and attorney Saddiyah Karriem, who will be discussing the incident involving a white woman dubbed as the Victoria's Secret's Karen. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Asiatic Minds, online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness, as well as the greatness of our people, and upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Call now, 502-219-4848.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
The hashtag Bank Black social media campaign made strides not only in revolutionizing how we bank, but also how we think. The movement inspired thousands of African Americans across the country to transfer or deposit millions of dollars into Black-owned banks. These are banks that will invest in urban communities, employ African Americans, support Black businesses, and inspire Black home ownership. This is a very proud moment for our culture as we are taking small but significant steps towards building Black power through Black wealth.
Thank you for tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Clifton Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
A white woman who has been dubbed as the Victoria's Secret's Karen after she allegedly attempted to attack a black woman, then fell on the floor screaming when she realized she was being filmed.
Now you, oh my God! Oh my God! Do you see this? Oh my God! I never thought nothing like this would happen to me. She just tried to run and hit me, and now she. Did you see her? You saw her, right? They all saw her. Oh my God! Karen had a breakdown. She tried to hit me. Ask your workers. She tried to hit me.
So we're here, and joining us, we have our monthly, I'm trying not to, I had to laugh. We have our commentators, our attorney, Saddiyah Karriem, and our brother, Dr. Gary Clark. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll get right to it. So we'll start with you, Attorney Saddiyah. You know, with this, what is going on, we're seeing an increase of these kind of incidents involving white women calling the police and playing the victim when they are really the aggressors. And so my question is, should these incidents be considered lightweight hate crimes?
Absolutely, they should be considered lightweight. No, not lightweight, major hate crimes. Because what you're seeing is the weaponization of the white woman's tears. You know, we can go to 1921 when we dealt with the Tulsa massacre. It started with the white woman's tears. We can look at what happened to Emmett Till. It started with the white woman's tears. And so it's a psychological weapon, emotional and psychological weapon that white women use, you know, with their privileged self to make it seem as if the accuser is the one that's in the wrong and they're the victim. And what ends up happening is these white women's tears inflames the white man for him to do something and look down on the black woman or look down on the black man. And, you know, with a little bit of the backstory, the police officers have not done anything, because if you look at that video, that white woman tried to assault that sister. And then when she realized that she was being recorded, that's when she went into using her weapon. And the only weapon that she had was her tears and her fake femininity. And so, you know, there's a so-called investigation, what's going on. But the reality is the white woman has been using this as her weapon of choice for centuries on the black man and the black woman.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. And what do you have to say, Doc?
Well, you know, I concur 100% with Attorney Saddiyah, and because the reality that is a combination of institutional and individual racism. You see the individual racism with the lady that in the attack, who was in attack mode. And you also see the institutional institutional racism when the police force did not respond, when the police did not respond in any form or any manner. But you know something, let me say this to you very quickly. It's also the manifestation of where we are today in terms of African Americans, men, women, people of color, preparing themselves for any eventuality that can exist in the public. And so this generation of people are prepared. When I was young, you know, there's a big thing now about bullying. We in my generation, my folks used to say, when I grew up, we used to say bully. We wait for the bully. We prepare for the bully. There's no such thing as bullying when I was growing up. We wanted the bully to come up. Let the bully come to my table. Well, that's what this generation of individuals are saying right now. Bring the bully on, because we're prepared to film you, to demonstrate you, and to protect ourselves. And so it's a whole different ball game out there now when you bring that sort of effect on people of color.
Wow. Great points by both of you all. And my next question, Sister Saddiyah, you kind of touched on this, but I want us to delve more into it, because historically, white men have been the focus when it comes to racism and white supremacy. But from your perspective, can you talk some more about it? What has been the role of white women and white tears, the role that they have played in the oppression and even the murder of black people in America?
You know, white women experienced oppression too, and lack of power. And so, you know, using their femininity to their advantage, as opposed to looking at the black woman. We know we had, you know, blackface, and we made into caricatures, you know, the black woman as the sapphire, who is the belligerent, angry black woman. And that's the propaganda that has been spread about the Black woman. So you don't really want to protect the Black woman. You don't want to take care of the Black woman. She's the enemy. And so when you look at this helpless damsel in distress, that is her power of choice. And when she wants to use her white privilege or her white supremacy over the Black man and the Black woman, then she taps into that particular weapon of choice. And because of, like Dr. Clark said, because of social media and being able to record it, now we have to, because had that sister not recorded that incident, then she would probably been the one arrested. And so that's the sad reality that we're dealing with, that the Karens and the Cans are being exposed, but they're still bold with their weapon of choice.
Doc, what do you say?
Well, as a Southerner, we understand that characterization. We grew up in the South. When I was growing up, there was an expression that the Anglos use, in particular Southern women: free, white, and 21. that was indeed a manifestation in terms of the power and authority that they had in Southern society. And so, yes, white women have always understood their position in American society. And yes, there have been periods in when that they suffered and were not accepted into the mainstream American society. But there are indeed nuanced differences, and I shouldn't even say nuanced differences, grave differences in terms of their acceptance versus the acceptance of people of color, male or female.
Wow. So, both of you have shared about the role that white women have played in the oppression of Black people, and what has been this video has given us a glimpse of what Black people experience, because now, as you said, Doc, we're prepared and they have the videos, but this has been going on for centuries, as both of you all have noticed. So this is a two-part question. I'll start with you first, Attorney Saddiyah, and then we'll come to you, Doc. So, Attorney Saddiyah, from your legal perspective, what can Black people do to address situations like this? Because this won't be the last incident, like this.
Well, in this particular incident, she did the right thing. She, although TikTok and all the social medias took her video down, exposure. You gotta pull back the cover on this type of behavior and expose these people. Just like the brother who was bird watching and the woman came and used her white tears as a weapon. You gotta expose these people, because what happens is when you lose loss of economics and loss of face, that's what they do understand. And if you listen to that woman, in the end, she was afraid that her job was going to see her. That's why she did her whole song and fake dance, and feign mental health, which she really didn't have some mental disability. Her mental disability really was white hate against the Black woman. So you just have to continue to expose this and video record it, And if, in certain situations, you gotta, with the police department that's involved, you gotta put the pressure on them to file criminal charges against this woman.
Thank you. And Doc, you have wealth of experience from the political field and political science. So is there anything that Black people can do politically in terms of policy to address this?
Well, policy, we can do we can put all the laws together that you want. Law, you can put as many laws on the books that you so desire. But guess what? There's something called policy. The law may say that you cannot spit on the sidewalk, but the policy may be we don't enforce that law. And so what we must do is that we must understand that it is indeed a war out there. And so you got to confront this in all manners, whether it's in the legal arena, the political arena, in the faith-based arena. You got to continuously come at when you see these sorts of discretions perpetrated against people of color. You got to approach it not only on Saturdays and Sundays and in environments such as this, but everywhere. And when I say this, I mean it. You must be comprehensive in your approach. No venue is free from not recognizing what is taking place.
Wow. And I'll just offer this question to both of you all. You can, whoever wants to respond. I came across some articles where there's a group of white women who are working to stop people from using the word Karen, because they say it's a racial slur equivalent to the N-word. What are your thoughts?
Apply pressure. We're going to expose it and call them out for what they are. Racist Karens.
And true enough, and Frederick Douglass always said you have to agitate, and that's what you do. And so yes, the fact that you even got that response lets you know that it's effective.
And Hollywood is actually, they're in the process of making a movie called Karen. And the thing is like interesting, it's like you continue, it's like every other month is one of them. The woman calling the police because the people were barbecuing, the brother who was bird watching. And oftentimes you see with our people, you know, most of them have been like real forgiving. Like the brother who was in the park is like, he hated that she had to go through this. And even the guy with his son, the lady said his son stole the telephone. Just climate. Like why? Like you would think they would calm down because they know the videos are out here, but they're not.
Well, it's like Dr. Clark said, you look at policy versus what reality is. The woman who lost her job with the guy watching the bird, you know, she filed a lawsuit against her employer for firing her.
Wow.
And the reality is she may get a settlement. So it's the institutions that back up this particular type of behavior. You know, we expose it, but they continue to back it up. So there's no need for individuals like this to stop these actions.
So I want to ask you, so should they lose their job? Should they be fired from their jobs for something that, like she did this in Victoria's Secret? Should she be fired from her job if she has one?
Well, there's something called moral responsibility, moral dilemma. And so is this indeed a moral dilemma for the majority culture in our society? Is this, and I would suggest that no, it's not a moral dilemma. The dilemma is how much does this affect you financially? And is an economic dilemma. That's what determines the morality for those people who sit on that side of the equation. I would suggest as well that you asked earlier about what happens with this, you use this with real forgiving. What's that? Adverb of manner, whatever it may be, but real forgiving. But what happens when the forgiving stops? When the forgiving stops, then you can rest assured that you're going to see a fundamental change in American society.
That's right. And the bottom line of this particular crime is they don't want to take accountability.
What do you all think about Victoria's Secret? They issued a statement on it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Victoria's Secrets. I mean, we all understand the cycle. You do this, but now that they at this point, you know, old school civil rights leader would say, okay, it's time now. You issued a statement. Okay, but now we want what some would say retribution. Not retribution, but we want for you to make some sort of contribution. Should I say? And so forgiving is one thing, and now we want to see where are you going to invest your dollars to show that you demonstrate, to show that you are sincere. And there are plenty of pockets in the African American community where this is available for them to invest. And
I guess being that she wasn't an employee of Victoria's Secret. So what do you think, sister?
You know, I read their statement. It was so watered down and so neutral that it was just really entirely ridiculous. I mean, it's apparent on his face that the woman came after this African-American woman and then feigned like she had some type of disability and did exactly what she was supposed to do. So they needed to really speak out against the racism, but they didn't. So they failed.
Yeah, in the history we have it, like you talked about the Emmett Tills, and I was reading a very good article that was talking about this whole phenomena about Karens, and they ran through a list of white women who were doing things and with their tears and it negatively impacted Black people in the Black family. You think about Tulsa Wall Street. It was a result of a young white girl screaming, and they used it as an opportunity to come and destroy this progressive and very successful Black neighborhood. So we thank you all for your comments on this particular subject. We're going to get ready to pause to hear some announcements from our next sponsors, and then we'll be right back to talk about the protests for democracy in Cuba when we'll be right back here on NNV News Network.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button, or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
Protests demanding democracy for Cuba continued in South Florida for several days, as well as in other cities throughout America.
Among Florida's large Cuban American population, the rallying cry of Free Cuba has long been a call for democracy on the communist run island. Following anti-government protests in Cuba, those calls are growing as the exiled community across the US show support for Cubans facing the worst economic crisis in decades.
It doesn't matter whether you're born in Cuba, Cuban born or U.S. born. If you're Cuban heritage and you love Cubans, I know a lot of Colombians, Venezuela, and a lot of people that love Cuba, you got to understand what's going on and you have to support this. We are lucky to be able to do this here.
Emotions are running so high in Miami that some activists loaded up boats with supplies, planning to make the treacherous journey across the Florida Straits to Cuba. The U.S. Coast Guard has warned against illegal crossings. The U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, fled Cuba as a child and warned those potentially planning to leave Cuba not to come.
So we're back with our guests, and we're going to talk about these protests. So in an article that I read titled, "The Internet is," it was on the internet. The title, there was an article on the internet about the Cuban protests, right? And they talked about 3 reasons for why these protests are taking place. 1, they said is because of Cuba's economic collapse. 2, the restriction of civil liberties. And 3, the government's handling of the pandemic. Now, as I read the article and other articles, I just couldn't get past the impact of the embargoes on the country of Cuba. So my question to you all, we'll start with you, Dr. Clark, and then we'll go to Attorney Karriem. Does America play a significant role in these 3 causes that are causing the unrest, or is it solely the responsibility of the Cuban government?
Oh, 100%. And not just, I mean, this is your neighbor. And America, you know, is the hidden hand, and the hidden hand exists, whether it's in Cuba, whether it's in Haiti, whether it's in parts of the Middle East and other parts of South and Central America. Yes, the hidden hand is there. And it's not a conspiratorial, it's the fact that America supports the quote unquote democratizations around the world and to export American style democracy. And so, yes, it takes place, but all countries do this. All countries fight to have a, when I say the superpowers do this, to have their hand. It's a question. It's like the pluralist model. It's molecules fighting, moving against one another. They're all fighting. And so, yes, it exists. And yes, America does play a role. And theoretically, it's the hope and expectation, according to those in current power, that we've seen the fruition of what's taken place in terms of the embargo over the past 35, 40 years.
Attorney Karriem?
So again, yes, it's the hidden hand, is throw the rock and hide the hand. So America is probably the #1 cause for the reason why they're protesting right now. If we look at the history and go back, we saw that, you know, America wanted to and saw their own president, right, have their own particular government. And Fidel Castro said, no, we want to be an independent and sovereign country. And what happened? Well, United States government said, if you don't want to do like I told you to do, then we're going to punish you. And so we're going to stop economic embargo coming into your country. We're going to stop other people from sending food and supplies and financial economics to your country. Those who love us, they're going to turn their back on you. And so now you have this country who is starving, who their quality of life is diminishing. You've seen in the past 2 weeks the uprising of COVID. Now, another thing is Cuba had their own vaccine. And in particular, their vaccine helped build up the immune system of those who were taking it. And so they don't have the necessary supplies in order to administer this particular vaccine. There was over 184 countries who voted in favor of a UN resolution to stop the economic embargo. And it was the United States and Israel who wanted it to continue. $130 billion have been lost to Cuba that, have not been able to receive it because of this particular economic embargo. When we had President Obama as our president, he opened up diplomacy between Cuba. He allowed the travel to go back and forth, and Cuba was starting to see the quality of life increase. And we got to remember, 1/3 of Cuba also is of Afro descent. So you have a lot of things going on in Cuba. And right now, the people that are protesting, they're feeling the effects of the abuses of the American government.
Wow. And I remember reading Randolph Robinson's book, The Debt. And he has a chapter which really talks about the impact that the embargo has on the Cuban government. So I would encourage our readers to make sure that they get that book as well. Now, in preparing for this interview, I came across this article where the Black Lives Matter organization came under fire because, in short, the organization, it was calling for the U.S. government to end the embargoes on Cuba, but it also praised the country. And the people who were part of the protest took odds with that. And they were basically saying that the Black Lives Matter organization was being insensitive, and it wasn't even to offer such a statement like that goes against what they say Black Lives Matter actually stands for. And I'll come to you, Dr. Clark, and then we'll go back to Attorney Karriem. So is the Black Lives Matter's position right, or are they indeed letting the Cuban government off the hook from your perspective?
We should understand too that this is a very complex situation to a large extent. What you find is that the complexity is such that you have right-wing authoritarians and Floridians who find major fault with the Cuban government. And understand this, and so in the major fault that they have with the Cuban government is that we understand authoritarian style. Even the totalitarians the authoritarians do not care for the communists. Understand that, and this is a socialist government that is in power. So then you find them, and then you find that, as indicated earlier, that the Cuba is largely black, is a significant black population. Let me say this to you very quickly. There were three waves of Cubans that came to the United States of America. The first wave of Cubans that came in the 60s under the Kennedy administration, they were white, aristocratic, wealthy Cubans. They came under Kennedy, and there was the go-go 60s. Nobody paid attention to it. The second wave of Cubans that came to America were middle class, artisans, lawyers, doctors. They were brown Cubans. Now the third wave that came under the Carter administration, the materialistas that many of us are familiar with. Those materialistas were black Cubans, and so now you find that these waves, the complexity of race that exists in Cuba, and the totalitarian style government, the communist government, in conjunction with the Floridians who want to go back to Cuba and embrace their land and invert the situation which has taken place since the 1960s, is a complex of activities which has taken place. So yes, are the Black Lives Matter movement, are they right or wrong? Understand, the Black Lives Matter people come from the left wing of the political spectrum, but sometimes spectrums come together when riots and civil disobedience come into play. And then once that government is toppled, then you have to decide what sort of government you want. Growth pains, you may want to call it.
Yes, sir. Attorney Karriem.
And so what you see is a humanitarian issue. You know, Biden, when he put out his platform, you know, he said that he was going to open up diplomacy between Cuba and, you know, release some of these economic embargoes, but he hasn't, right? So who's really fueling that fire with propane, Dr. Clark? And so right now, we don't want to take away what the people in Cuba are going through. We don't want to invalidate their conditions because it's very serious. You know, the starvation, the lack of employment. I mean, they're barely surviving. And now you see all of a sudden where they had a very low rate of COVID infections, they're starting to increase. You know, I hate to say that I'm into conspiracy theories, but you got to look at the hidden hand. And if you are truly concerned about humanitarian efforts, Biden, then you would lift these economic embargoes and help this particular country and not sanction other countries who want to help Cuba as well. So this is a humanitarian issue, and Black Lives Matter. They know that they got to go in and help save their brothers no matter what.
And can I say this as well, real quickly? And also you have a suspension of the civil liberties that's taking place in Cuba, and so that's another issue of contention. And in our state, my state, where we are now, Brother Willie and I, in the state of Louisiana, you find that Louisiana farmers have to be subsidized because of what's taking place, because of the embargo. The sugarcane people, all of those folks say, wait a minute, they want to change the equation, and many of them want to end this embargo. And so it cripples American industry, and it cripples the import-export business.
And you know, and another thing, when you look at history, you know, when it talks about the restriction of the civil liberties, them being an authoritarian government, I wonder how much of that is also influenced by this government is aware that this big, powerful country 90 miles away from us is always looking for an opportunity to come in and find a group of people that dislike us, and they feed that and use that as an excuse to come in. So that way we have to make sure we have certain limits on the internet. And I'm not saying that all of that is right, but I know that affects the way that they rule, because they know that America still wants to be able to put a government in that country that they know that they can actually control. And Attorney Saddiyah, you were talking about Biden, and this is the last question on this. So what are your thoughts regarding the calls for President Joe Biden to intervene? Like, is it possible for America to intervene in these protests, in this situation, in a fair and justified and a just way?
Absolutely. We saw our past president Obama intervene, and he was able to establish good diplomacy between the two countries and allow the economic embargo to be lifted. Then we saw Trump come in and shut it down and made more stringent sanctions. And so if Biden is going to do the right thing, the spotlight is on him right now. He said that he was going to do something about it, and right now he's just sitting back watching. And so we, in the middle of a pandemic, so it's really up to America. The spotlight's on her. So showtime, Biden.
Thank you. And Doc, what do you say before we go to our break? Can America intervene as an honest peace broker?
Well, honest is a different kind of word, but intervention is definitely part of the imperative. Look, it's the Western Hemisphere. Granted, basic. That's all said and done. And you can go back to your old Monroe Doctrine concept, and you can go back to the good neighbor concept that Roosevelt had. You can go back to all of these, to the Alliance of Progress. Yes, America has a history of intervention in the Western Hemisphere. And will America intervene? The question is not should America intervene? The question is when and how. But yes, intervention is part of the process.
Yes, sir.
But even in their intervention,
go ahead, sis.
But even in their intervention, how are they going to intervene? Send over vaccines to Cuba, right? Different from what Cubans have been receiving. So that throw the rock and hide the hand.
And the thing is, I asked a question on social media about it, and some people, I was like, what's the Black community's response should be? And I don't know if a lot of people are aware of how the country allows Blacks who can speak Spanish, who they can come in and learn and become doctors for free, that they wanted to send doctors here during the COVID pandemic and even during Katrina, and the American government just stopped it. So it's interesting. It's something for us to keep our eyes on. And thank you all for your comments, because as we come up into our last segment, we're going to pause for some announcements from our sponsors. But after the break, our contributors are going to talk about the 14-year-old sister who won the 2021 Scripps National Spelling Bee Championship. And she's from the city of she's not, well, New Orleans, West Bank. She's from Louisiana. So we'll be back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
Asiatic Minds, online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness as well as the greatness of our people. And upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Classes begin September 1st. To enroll, visit AsiaticMinds.com.
This is Sister Saddiyah Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Saddiyah House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at SaddiyahHouse.com.
Greetings from National Network View. This week's final call cover story headline reads, "Separate and Be Saved. America's race problems and deadly race interactions are growing worse. It is time we leave the children of our former slave masters and 400-year-old tormentors. Separation from whites is the only and best solution to this problem, a serious problem that is rooted in prophecy." This FCN Volume Number 41 edition middle page article by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is entitled, "A Case for Separation." To read more, subscribe to FinalCallDigital.com and tune in to the all-new Final Call Radio. This is the NNVNews.com Final Call Cover Report.
Please make sure you leave your comments and questions in the comment section below. Follow us on Facebook, National Network View, and make sure to check us out on Twitter as well, National Network View. This is Sergio Gutierrez with National Network View, signing off.
Last week, Sister Zalia Avant-Garde, who's a 14-year-old from a suburb outside of New Orleans, walked to the center of the 2021 Scripps National Spelling Bee stage and won.
Zaila Avant-Garde, a spelling and basketball star from Harvey, Louisiana, beat out more than 200 others to earn the championship trophy. The final word that did the trick, Maria.
And the champ up early this morning. Zaila, congratulations.
Thank you. How you doing?
We're doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
So here's the thing. You're the first African-American winner. You're the first winner from the state of Louisiana. And as I understand it, last year you finished 370th, and this year you win the whole thing. How'd you do it?
A lot of hard work. And my tutors, they helped Coach Schaefer Ray, who's like my main tutor. And over the last few weeks, Sneha Ganesh and her mother Vijaya have been helping me a lot. And also a bit of...
Wow, so think about that. So we're back with our commentators, and I'll start with you, Dr. Clark, then we'll go to Attorney Karriem. So just what do you think is just the overall significance of this young sister winning this spelling bee? Because I know you all probably came across some of the history regarding this as well.
Oh, amazing. And amazing 100%. And just the fact, knowing her history and the fact that her dad changed the name, the surname, and Avant-Garde. And so, when I was growing up, they always said your name is your ambassador. And guess what? Your name is your ambassador. And it's an indicator sometimes of where you want to be and what you talked about earlier before we began about the naming of your child and what it meant. And so your name tells gives you a projection in terms of what you will be and what those who come from behind you will accept. And so, yes, I think it's significant. It's powerful for the people of the state of Louisiana, powerful for the nation, for not just people of color, females and women, but for everyone to see that you can multitask. You know, I wish that I had more than I had the skills that she has. But I can't sing, dance, do all those other et cetera like that. And so just as one skill or two that I have, then you make it work. And so I think it's truly outstanding.
Thank you. Sis?
Oh, I'm proud. I'm beaming for her family, and it's hashtag Black Girl Magic. You know, Dr. Clark said, you know, her name, Avant-Garde, meaning new and unusual.
Wow.
And so she broke the impossible for any little girl. And as he was saying, she's so multi-talented. You know, she has 3 Guinness Book World Records on dribbling a basketball. So not only is she athletically inclined, but she's a genius. She really is a genius. And, you know, I just commend her family, her parents, because they saw something in her and they facilitated that. You know, her dad asked her, you know, certain words to spell them. And he asked her, how did you know how to spell those words? It's because she read over 1,000 books. And so education, it was highly, and it is highly important in her household. So, you know, we've seen only one African-American in the United States. And many times it's because we don't have the funding. We don't have the encouragement or the motivation, or we can't see ourselves in that particular position. But she broke the mold. So now that we see this one little Black girl is going to encourage so many other little girls, you know, that this can be done as well. And, you know, she started 2 years ago. 2 years ago. This was her goal 2 years ago. So she made a decision and she made it happen, and it is. So I'm so proud of her.
Wow. And it was interesting. I came across an article where they showed how the history of racism again in America, where they actually had a racist policy and laws that prevented Blacks from participating in that. And it's something, it goes to show that when we're given an opportunity, we are going to excel. The cream is going to rise to the top. And this was a very significant as well. She attends a school, is called a such and such homeschool, right? So, and we're seeing that there's beginning to be a significant number of homeschool people who are homeschooling their children, and schools children participating in this spelling bee. So, Doc, I'll ask you, we'll start with you. You know, what does this say about the ability of homeschool education to really that can really, in a sufficient way, prepare our students for academic success?
Well, this is anecdotal. I can recall that many of my friends, when they were raising their kids, a number of them, and they were on the East Coast and other parts of the country, were homeschooling their kids. And I was like, oh, what about the socialization, all these other et cetera, which become important. And then when my kids became of age and they entered the system, I said, oh my goodness, I do understand now why they homeschooling their kids. I just wish I had the stamina and everything else to do that. And so there is great value in homeschooling, and also in taking control of you educating your kids, your own children. But let me say this very quickly. Those of us who are from South Louisiana, we understand the challenges that exist when it comes to spelling. Look, here in South Louisiana, you know, we understand if you're going to spell Chapatulas, if you're going to spell Chafalaya, if you're going to spell Calcasieu, I mean, you've got to start the process early in life. And that's just the way it is.
And she started 2 years ago. That's amazing. What do you say, Doc? Because you're there in the city of Houston with a phenomenal, one of the phenomenal homeschooling institutions, Elevated Places.
That's where all my money goes to. I believe in this institution, you know, absolutely. And when you homeschool your children, just like Doc said, there's some of the elements that your children don't have to worry about, so they can really focus, you know, from a social perspective and get caught up in the distractions. Plus, you have the freedom to be able to just learn whatever it is you desire, as opposed to have grades set up that where you just have to stop at a particular benchmark. But, you know, I love history, and we always got to go back. You know, what is one of the things that the slave master did not want us to do or learn? We could not read, right? They wanted to make sure that anything that was in a book that we could not get our hands on, because once we got some knowledge and some education, then again, that we would not be subservient to them. So, you know, we got to follow the example of our beautiful little sister. Read. She said she has read over 1,000 books, and she is only 14 years old.
14.
Come on now.
And you know, my daughters in their early years of education, they were homeschooled. And my oldest daughter, when she got ready to attend, this one was considered one of the academic powerhouses in the city of New Orleans. When she went and take the test, she came out in like 15 minutes. And I'm like, yo, did you take your time? She was like, no, I did it. It was easy. And that's the thing. And Dr. Clark, you talked about it as well, because some of our people think when they say like the homeschooling, how are you going to do that? But it is, especially with these programs now that they have. With a sister they showed in one of the commercials, a sister who has a Black Minds Academy, you know. And here's my last question to both of y'all. We'll start with you, Doc, and then we'll go to attorney. How can we as a people use the success of this young sister as a way to encourage learning, and as what attorney Karriem, sister Saddiyah was saying, to encourage learning and also reading, because that's very important?
Well, you know, she is avant-garde is a model. She is a model of excellence without saying it. You know, there was in the old Ebony magazines used to always have a little section of successful Blacks in different areas, what they're doing, how they're doing it, because they were presenting models out there for you, and so for you to be exposed to. So it's there, and she's being exposed, and we see it, now, because now we're in the election season here in New Orleans. But you find that now many of the politicals are embracing her, using her as a model. You find that many of the social organizations, the Zulus, etc., she's gone to all of those events. So she's demonstrating that not only is she physically prepared, intellectually prepared, but there's a social component to what she does, that she embraces her celebrity in a quiet and subdued way, which I think by far is very effective and very good for all of us. And so, yes, her modeling is what is important.
Definitely. Yesterday, they just gave her a parade and she had a second line. You get a second line in New Orleans, you're bossa. What do you say, sis?
You know, you're exactly right, Dr. Clark. It's all about modeling. So we know what success looks like now. So we take whatever that model is, that her father and the people around her support system, and even her mindset, and we teach and we train our children with that particular model, because we see that it wins. We see that it wins and it expands. And now she has a love for life. She has a love for travel because of this. And so many doors have opened up for her. And so it is through reading. It is through education. We got to teach our children that they can have adventures and travel the world and do many things. But we got to follow the model for success. And she's it.
Definitely. And, you know, one of the things I'll tell people from my experience in the educational world is that you should not send your child to school with the expectation thinking that the school is going to teach them how to read. That's very dangerous, because even and schools have the desire to say we're going to help them read, but they're so overcrowded. And that's one of the things. And that's one of the things we made sure. And I've seen as an educator, students who are proficient in reading, they usually breeze through school. And I know, Doc, you see it on the college campus, huh?
Can I say this as well?
Yeah.
That expectation, not just in terms of reading, on all levels. You can't send your child to school and expect that your coach, that the coach is going to teach them how to play basketball or football. They got to come already with some skill development, plain and simple. You can't expect that they can join the band and they're going to teach them how to play a trumpet or whatever. They have to already come with some skill development. School now is all they want to do. I should not say this because you're an educator, but
no, go ahead, man. Listen, say it.
The school setting now, they sharpen your skills, but they're not going to come. They're not going to start with the fundamentals. You got to come there, and then from there they sharpen you and move you up the ladder.
And you know, another beautiful thing about that sister, I think they said 2 years ago she placed like 300, but she didn't stop. She didn't allow that incident to stop her, say I'm just going to give up. She kept working, and that's some of the things that we need to learn as adults and even as students. And this is making me think, I'm going to talk to those with the network, that we might need to do like a little forum or something and get some of those people who are running home schools and this independent education, to have them come on to talk about it. Because now with this pandemic, it showed us you can now do it online and still be sufficiently educated, right? So thank you all again for your great commentary. I really appreciate you all and what you all shared. And we want to thank those who are watching for tuning in as well. We encourage you all to continue to tune into National Network View. Continue to share your thoughts with us in the comment section when you're watching this video or you're seeing the clips. Continue also to follow NNV at NNV News, and please subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, which is NNV News. We're thankful for those who have been subscribing, and the subscribers have gone up. So this is your brother Willie Muhammad. Make sure you tune in next week.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.